Okay. So I'm being live streamed now. Be careful what I say now. Nothing too outrageous. But it's a modest. It's not worldwide, I don't think. Just a few of the devoted supporters of Dhammagiri tune in for this session, who for one reason or they can't make it here. I'm sure probably a lot of them would like to be here, but certain things prevent them being here today. Because it's nice on the Uposta days, if we can, to go to the monastery and take precepts and contemplate the Dhamma, do some meditation. It's a very good way to use an Uposta day. Yeah, so it's quite, because Saturday is meditation day for some, and so it's nice that this weekend and next couple of weekends it'll be like moon days around the weekends. So hopefully if you don't have to work, you can come and have some quiet, meditative time. When I first started to practice meditation, I couldn't do it on my own. I had to go to a group. So first I went to the Buddhist Society in London, because that's the only place I could find. But then I heard about these monks in a place called Hampstead, and I met Luang Por Sumedho. But then they moved to Chithurst. So I started to go to the Thai temple in Wimbledon. I'd go every Sunday and spend the day there. And the routine there was like, there's a shrine room there, I just used that. And of course the Thai people are very generous and gave me a good meal. And then just carry on meditation at 3 o'clock. When the monks would come in and give us the precepts, and they give a little Dhamma talk, and we meditate again together. So it's quite nice, really good, and it really was a nice thing to do before the week at work. Prepare yourself for the week, prepare the mind, prepare things. And it is quite, even though maybe spending a day in meditation is not so easy, but it does strengthen something, and it made me cope much better with the situations at work. Yeah, really made a difference to handle the different characters and the sort of work I had to do, and so it made quite a difference. So that's why I used to do it. I always feel like a carpenter sharpens his tools before he does his work. If he has blunt tools, it's hard work, isn't it? But if the tools are sharp, then of course it makes things a lot easier. So the same I feel with meditation, to prepare the mind for whatever the week is going to manifest for you. And the more you practice, you don't really, maybe you don't even see much. It's what you might call progress in terms of, your mind gets really calm and all the thoughts disappear, but something is strengthening. And you just find initially you're not reacting to things as strongly as maybe you used to. And I like to tell the story. There was somebody who was on our charity trust in the UK, and his name was Maurice Walsh. And he translated the Digha Nikaya. I don't know if you've seen the Digha Nikaya, but he was a German professor, but he got into Pali later, and so he translated Digha Nikaya. And while he was working as a German professor in London, he got an interest in meditation. So he'd go to some meditation classes in London. Not sure where, but he went somewhere. And he did this for a while. And but he felt, after a while, not getting anywhere with this meditation. I sit there, mind all over the place as usual, you know. So he was thinking maybe it's not working for me. Maybe I'll try something else, you know. And he was thinking like this, and it was like he got home from the session, and he was thinking like this, and he was with his wife having his evening meal. And suddenly his wife says to him, "Hey," she said, "Maurice, you know, since you've been doing meditation, you're sort of less bad-tempered than you used to be." And he realised, yeah, actually, yeah. I don't react so to things as well as I used to. And after that, he carried on. So there's some benefit here. And he went on to be a very great supporter of the Sangha. And he used his linguistic skills to translate Buddhist sutras. And for his 80th birthday, he became a monk for Vasa at Amavati, yeah. Just for Vasa, you know, just to, yeah. But he was a great supporter for many years, yeah. So, I mean, that's where the faith comes in, really. We talk, I mean, Buddhism's not like a belief system, but the faith is that maybe something good might come out of this practice, you know. Some benefits from developing meditation practice. Because, you know, the actual experience of it cannot be, you know, always wonderful. It can be quite challenging. And training the mind, the Buddha didn't say it was easy. I didn't find it easy anyway, maybe you do. But it wasn't just the mind, it was the body too. So, you know, discomfort, physical discomfort. You're sitting much better than I did. You know, when I started meditating, my knees were up here, you know. I was on this retreat with Luang Por Sumedho, and this lady, I think she was in the 70s. She whispered in my ear, says, "You should do a bit of yoga," she said. Get those knees down. But then over the time, decided to loosen up. Eventually they did go down. So does anybody have any questions? It's supposed to be a Dhamma discussion, not just listening to me, reminiscing.
Actually, I have a question.
Yes?
I just was thinking about conceit.
Mm-hmm.
Personality view, you know, how does Ajahn advise us to work on if we have this thing about I am this and I'm that, or better or worse or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's natural. We will have these thoughts, but there's a difference between, you know, believing them than just listening to them, isn't there? So we all have those thoughts. So don't get into judging oneself for having conceited thoughts, but just be aware of them, and don't have to believe them. Just know it's the mind. A thought of conceit arising and ceasing. Yeah. But one teaching on conceit, there's a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya called the Saropama Sutta. Saropa means like heartwood. And it's about how conceit can be a hindrance to realizing the heartwood of the practice. So in this particular sutta, so people start to practice, and they have different realizations. So first, like I'm keeping precepts now, and they start thinking, I'm better than him because I keep the precepts. So we get conceited about keeping precepts. You know, I've got 227. How many have you got? But you know, we can get this sort of moral superiority. We conceited about our precepts, thinking we're better than other people because we keep the precepts. So we just settle in our practice to just be one who keeps precepts, and we stay with that. So the Buddha said, this is like you're settling for the bark of the tree, and not you're going to miss the heartwood. You're just settling for the bark. Then the second sort of person studies the suttas very thoroughly, knows the suttas very well. Now, this person doesn't know the suttas like I do. I know more than him. Like intellectual conceit. And that happens, that's not just in Dhamma, but that's in like in academic circles, how people can get very conceited about their knowledge. And try, and how people knock each other down with their knowledge, trying to put this, well, you don't know as much as I do, and so we can get conceited about knowledge. So that's like you get to the softwood under the bark. You actually get to the softwood, and you settle for that. You just become who just studies and gets a lot of knowledge, and becomes conceited about knowing a lot. Yeah, and so that's another intellectual conceit. Is another form of conceit to be aware of. And if you just settle for just intellectual knowledge, then that'll limit realizing that, like the heart would. Then, the next person, so he has this, actually they got the sila, and they're quite well versed in the Dhamma, but they don't settle for that. Then they do start to meditate as well. And they start to get calm from their meditation. I'm so calm, but you're all so restless and all. Your mind's all over the place, but I'm so calm. So we get conceited about our meditative experience. We think we're better because we can sit longer than those other people. Our mind's calmer than those other people. So we settle for meditative calm and think we're superior because we've achieved some sort of meditative calm. So that's like you get to from the bark to the sap to this is like the softwood of the tree. We're settling for that now, for just having a state of calm. And then thinking one's superior than other people because you have a calm mind. Yeah. Then the next, so they realize the calm, but then also insights can come from the calm, which is not free from defilements, but certain knowledges can come, maybe some sort of psychic abilities or knowledge of some sort. I remember my past lives, but they can't, Yeah. Or I can see angels, devas, but they can't. So we get conceited about certain meditative experiences or certain sensitivities that have come through our calm meditation, certain knowledges or whatever. And so we can become conceited about that. And think we're superior than other people because we have these certain abilities. Yeah. So that's, as I said, beware of that. But the one who doesn't settle for any of these things carries on contemplating, letting go of conceit, and they realize the heartwood, the end of suffering, the ending of conceit. That's the heartwood. They didn't get caught up in all the different, in the morality, and the knowledge, calm mind, insights, but they carried on going, and they realized the heartwood. So I find that quite a good map, and something I find it's really good to be aware of these different ways conceit can arise, And so these things might arise, but we don't have to get caught up in them. We can be aware of them. So that's a skill of awareness and mindfulness, to be aware as these different conceits arise.
What happened, Ajahn, if one notice that and hangs on to it rather than...
Well, it'll just be a limitation, won't it? Yeah. But hopefully as time goes on we won't. Yeah. I mean, you can't let go of everything straight away, You have to really keep on, sort of being aware of those things and letting go of those things you can let go of. So maybe there's certain things that are going to take a bit longer. That's natural. So don't worry, just know the things you can be more aware of and let go of. And it's like, like starting with it's like if you're going to be a weightlifter, you start with lighter weights, so you build up your strength to handle the more heavier things. So we wear some things, so we can, do that. But other things are more weightier, so we have to develop practice more before we can deal with those more skillfully. But all I can say from experience is the more you let go of, the better it gets. That's all I can say. The less conceit you have, then the more happy you are. But that's what, this, after the Buddha's enlightenment, he was sheltered by this Naga, Muchalinda. And so the storm came up and this Naga sheltered the Buddha from, and then Naga transformed into a white lay person, in white. And then the Buddha said about different types of happiness, about the happiness of seclusion for one who's contented, happiness that comes if you don't bear ill will towards your fellow human beings. That's another level of happiness. The happiness of a heart free from sense desires. But the Buddha said, but the greatest happiness of all is freedom from the conceit I am. So it's really very far, to really have let go of the conceit I am. It is, completely. It's well down the path, So don't worry about conceit coming up, because it's the way it is. Yes?
It's just about I came across one of the Dhammas about meditation, and one was talking about how when you meditate, you should develop PT, he translated as warrior intention, and in Burmese language we have the word PT as well.
Yes.
From my understanding, it was something that develops because of the situation, and you encounter with an external situation, and it develops in your head rather than you sit down and develop PT in your head. So how do you develop that intentionally when you meditate?
Well, it's a sort of a natural thing that naturally arises more the more we sort of let go of the hindrances in the mind. When the mind becomes more calm and concentrated, this is one of the mental factors that arise naturally from a concentrated mind. Yeah.
So it's not that we have to intentionally...
There's certain contemplations they can recommend that also can bring us... We use the word more joy, piti. Piti, sukha is like joy and happiness. Yeah. Euphoria sounds a bit over the top, a little bit, because you can if you sit there trying to get euphoria, or you just feel a bit of joy, It seems more accessible, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's just a natural byproduct of more of a calm mind, and more we sort of let go of the hindrances that disturb the calm of the mind, and the sense of joy arises, and and more happiness, pleasantness in the mind. But there's certain contemplations that can bring joy. That's recommended, like Buddha Nusati, recollection of the qualities of the Buddha, or Chaga Nusati, bringing one's acts of generosity to mind can bring a sense of joy when you remember, nice things you've done. Yeah, so these sort of these are certain contemplations you can do that can promote a sense of joy. Because there is a joy that comes from, recollecting one's giving. Well, I find, sometimes in the monastery, a long day sometimes, and tired. If I sit and watch my breath, I'm asleep. In the evening meditation. So I just reflect on the day. The things I did a day to support the life in the monastery, and that really, you feel happy from that. Recollection of one's, because generosity is not much about giving money or food even, but it's about giving time to help a situation, help someone, do something wholesome, to support something wholesome. So that can bring sort of joy. Yeah. Helping one's family. And friends. Oh, we're getting questions on the live stream as well.
What is meant by seeing things as they are?
Yes, okay, yeah. Well, in terms of, if you don't see things as they are, you see experience as permanent, as happiness, and as a self, some sort of permanent. You're seeking some sort of permanent, happy self. But one who sees things they are realizes that what experience is impermanent, and it's unsatisfactory because of its impermanence, and there's no solid self in it. So that's seeing things as they are. Yeah. It's the insight into anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the not self of experience. But normally, people do take experiences very personally until they sort of through mainly through meditation and some level of a calm, clear mind, more has insight into these characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the not self of experience. And this is not something you have to believe, but just to meditate, just to see for yourself. To contemplate for yourselves. But like on a level of practice, like we're talking about conceits and certain things we can be aware of, so certain mind states we can start to be more aware of. And just that awareness of a mind state arising and passing away is insight to not self. You see, it's not a self. It's just a temporary mind state. And that sort of insight just grows with different experiences. They're just habits of mind. There's no self in them. Just accumulated habits. Yes?
I had this experience recently that I was sitting at the beach and watching the waves, and my mind was trying to find like some kind of wondering if this trying to understand how it works stops me from being able to contemplate it.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Because it seems like just trying to understand is my ego trying to interact with it without letting it just be doing its thing. Because you can explain ways. You could if you have infinite amount of time and space to think about it. It's too complex. And I kind of feel like that stops me from being able to contemplate.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, I mean, even though one doesn't know all the causes and conditions, we can contemplate there are causes and conditions for waves to arise, can't we? And even though we might know all those causes and conditions, but what we can know is that waves arise and pass away. And I mean, that's a good analogy for the mind in a way, that, you know, like our moods are like the waves that arise and cease. And I see like the fundamental awareness of the mind before these thoughts and moods arise is like the sea. So the sea is like a boundless quality, but these waves arise in it. So the sea, so the fundamental awareness of the mind that these things arise and cease in. So that's how I can like to contemplate when I see waves. They sort of where they arise and cease from the sea. How things arise and cease in awareness, like our thoughts, feelings, sensations. So I can use nature as a contemplation in terms of related to the mind. But if we can just even accept waves on the level as watching them arise and cease, I think it can be very calming. Even if we don't know everything about how they arise, just notice they arise and cease. There's just watching, being aware of that, staying with that, being accepting the fact you don't know, everything about them, but the fact, they rise and cease, very peaceful, rise and ceasing, rise and ceasing. So it can have quite a calming effect on the mind, the natural rhythms.
And I was just thinking, in terms of Brandon's question,
Mm-hmm.
probably wrong here, because I was thinking, like, a lot of times the understanding of the mechanics of certain things are more important, but the actual event is actually giving us a lot of opportunity to contemplate what it can mean, like reinterpret it, to take the lesson out of it, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see the sunrise, you see the clouds flowing. You don't really have to understand how it works. We know the wind blows the clouds away, but it's all impermanent. It's all moving. It's like our mind, because that's what I do sometimes. I look at things, I'm thinking, I don't really understand the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not important. But what's important is how I use my perception to actually interpret it in a way which teaches me something.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, that's true. Yeah. And that can be very peaceful, that sort of attitude, So wanting to know something that you can't really know yet is actually suffering, isn't it, in a way? But maybe as we practice, certain understandings develop as well, naturally, from the practice. Mm. Yes.
Is it? Because like I was saying about how I watch the waves and I try to understand them. That's my interaction with them. And you were saying how you watch the natural mechanics,
Mm.
the natural things, and try to understand the mechanics, but you relate it to yourself in other ways.
Well, it's like walking through nature and looking at flowers. I find I can just find enjoying that, but I don't have to know all the names of the flowers. But I can just enjoy walking through nature, beautiful flowers, without knowing a lot about, which family they belong to, or what they're called and things like that. But the basic nature of all flowers is they rise and cease. That's the basic nature of all flowers. That's what I can know. It's like all waves. They rise and cease. And the insight into impermanence is one that brings a lot of peace to the mind when one really sees it on a deep level. This perception of impermanence. See, if we try to hold on to a flower, beautiful flower, I want it to last forever, it's it's suffering. But we're wise enough to know a flower doesn't last, but we don't understand this about other things. I was giving that analogy the other day, wasn't I, about the handful of leaves. And once the Buddha was with his disciples, and he was in a forest, and he picked up a handful of leaves, and he said, which is the most, the leaves in the forest or the leaves in my hand? And of course someone said, well, leaves in the forest is much more than leaves in your hand. And the Buddha said, well, what I've come to know through my meditation, through my experiences, as many as the leaves in the forest, he said. But what you need to know to liberate yourself from suffering is the same as the leaves in my hand. You don't have to know all the other things, just a few basic things that you need to know. And that's like the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, really. The essence of the Buddha's teachings. Other things could be interesting to know about, but that's all you really need to know. Like bird calls too, isn't it? Bird calls. I don't know all the names of these birds, but I can find some calls more pleasant than others. Some bird sounds more pleasant than others, but I don't know all the names. I can enjoy just knowing there's birds around.
Just want to clarify which you are, if you are doing meditation, so which identify that it is Vajra Samadhi or Appana Samadhi? What is the difference?
Well, it depends on the length of time you can hold on to your meditation object. So the levels of samadhi can be, like upachara is quite, you can hold on to your meditation object for a good length of time, but appamada can be a very long length of time, totally, like they call it more like absorption into the meditation object. But upachara is not so totally absorbed, so other things can sort of manifest in upachara samadhi. But upachara is seen as the level of calm of mind where you can actually see impermanence, you can see the rising and falling of things more clearly. Because you don't tend to, because like upachara samadhi would be, there's a sense of happiness in the mind, like you said, more like piti, some level of piti and sukha. So you feel quite happy, And so, because of that inner sort of happiness, you don't tend to chase the thoughts anymore, because you found this inner source of happiness. So then because you don't chase the thoughts anymore, they just arise and cease, you see, because you don't tend to get caught up in the thoughts with that sort of level of concentration. So, yeah, it's because you've got your own sense of inner happiness from that.
With the apana samadhi, there is no thought.
Yeah, no, that's absorption into your meditation object. But the recommendation, of course, is to come out of absorption to contemplate. And that's a trap of like what I was talking about before, like just wanting to just stay with that pleasantness and not experience things anymore, which can happen. You want to hold on to the pleasantness of the absorption. Where the Buddha, recommends now, you've got this inner source now, but come out of it and experience things and see them for what they are. And that's where the insight can come. That mind has the ability to contemplate after absorption. But Luang Por Chah himself, and also Luang Por Sumedho, they don't teach you you've got to get samadhi, but just they more like teach, just make the mind calm. They don't sort of titrate into certain levels of samadhi, but they just stay in the present moment, keep the level of calm, and contemplate from that. Because if we too much effort to get certain experience can be a hindrance to it. Willfully try to get samadhi, can actually be a hindrance to it. Too much effort makes you more restless, actually. Too much effort into trying to concentrate. The opposite, too least effort, you'll fall asleep. With too much effort, you'll get restless. So find the balance. And if you can approach meditation without expecting anything, that is actually a good attitude, rather than trying to get back maybe to a previous experience or trying to get something from it. Just practicing to be awake in the present moment, aware of whatever happens, learning from whatever experience one has. And like, when I read, the Anapanasati Sutta, in that sutta, the Buddha says, breathing in, one experiences the body. Breathing out, when one's experiencing the body. Breathing in, one calms the body. Breathing out, one calms the body. And it goes to the same with feelings, with mind states, dhammas. Yeah? So it's not like absorbing to your breath to get away from everything else, is it? But it's using your breath to keep connected with your experience in the present moment. Yeah? So, and naturally from that, you begin to understand, the different aspects of experience. And then it just leads to a natural state of calm. That is more natural, in fact, because just the willful absorption, you come out of it and you can't handle life anymore, But if you're using the breath to sort of just find more peace and understanding of experience, then it spills over into your everyday life. But that awareness will starts to permeate your life. And, some people might have different interpretations, but this is just, I'm talking from my own experience with this practice.
So this is vipassana related to the samadhi.
Well, it's, sometimes they talk about anapanasati as being a samatha practice. But I was saying also, because you learn, so actually it leads to vipassana too, because you actually learn about experience. If you're using the breath to connect yourself with experience, there's insight arises. Yeah. And that was also Luang Por Chah's analogy, like he said, like samatha and vipassana, two ends of a log. But if you pick up one end, eventually the other one will follow naturally. They're not. You can't sort of separate them. They're both parts of the same log. If you pick up one, the other one will follow, whichever.
Just related to that, I see the tendency sometimes you might think that, let's say doing meditation or doing a regular, whatever you're doing in the day, if you're more calm, things are more good, or you feel like things are progressing. And then there are times when you feel life is more chaotic, you can't sit quietly in meditation, things are too overwhelming.
Mm.
The mind naturally interprets things are not progressing.
Mm.
But my question or reflection in a way is whether there's no clear progression or regression, but as a part of practice, like you said, the waves of both joy or chaos coming up and down. How do you remain equanimous through both? Because the tendency is to kind of flow that, oh, I'm doing good, or I'm doing bad, but maybe encourage or discourage. I myself sometimes I kind of flow with the, I get discouraged,
Mm.
and then have to work harder to kind of keep myself aware of that coming up. Any suggestions of how you usually go about that?
Yeah, but I that's a natural experience for everybody. There's moments of everything seems to be going well. You feel well in yourself, and sometimes we think it's all falling apart. That's natural for practice. And the skill is really actually not to get carried away with the good times, because it does change. Again, it's impermanence, isn't it? Experiences change, and so if we keep also the perception of impermanence in mind, it means we don't get carried away with the good times, and then we can probably bear with the difficult times a bit better, because difficult times change too, don't they? Yeah. So the perception of impermanence, I think, can help us to keep us steady through the different experiences we do have. I think I think the joy, what I found very encouraging is just finding joy in simple things, like a walk in nature, even washing a dish, I thought that's something really, that was for me very encouraging to see that you can find happiness in simple things. So, that is a good thing to experience, but sometimes we have to deal with more complicated things. So sometimes that can be a bit more disturbing, but I think as we get more skilled in the practice, we can handle complexities in a more peaceful way too. Because being mindful doesn't mean you don't think. It's just, you can... I do find, through the practice that, when I was lodgings officer, and I got we have a special occasion at the monastery, there's lots of visiting monks and lay people. I've got to sort out all the accommodation, who's arriving when, and all this sort of logistics of it all, transport. And I find as time goes on, I could do all that in a more peaceful way. I handle the complexities in a more peaceful way. And even somebody changed the plans, I had to readjust everything, readjust things too. So I did, for whatever complexity I had to deal with, it helped, the practice helps with that too. But naturally there'll be times of, everything seems to be going well and have some nice experiences and insights, and times when it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like you're going backwards. I think you were saying about 1 up, 2 down, and forward 1 step, back 2. It feels like that sometimes. See, same principle.
And I also find that a lot of time when things happen, we suffer a lot more when we resist it.
Yes, okay,
When we resist it,
yeah.
we suffer a lot more.
Yeah. And again, it's a simple reflection in impermanence, but it is. These things don't last, And that's what Ajahn Chah was asked which things really helped him in his practice. This is our Thai teacher, and he said patience and contemplation impermanence. He says that are the most helpful things in his practice. Patient with the difficulties, but knowing it'll change. Yeah. Meditation is not just about sitting either. Sometimes I found just to, certain challenges sometimes and difficult situations, I found sometimes more helpful go for a walk in nature and just be in the body more rather than trying to figure it all out. Just have a bit good. Just have a walk in nature. Just try and tune into the sounds of the birds, your feet touching the earth, the smells of nature. That can be very help to sort of let go of worries, anxieties, or whatever we might be experienced from worldly situations, and just go. So it can be quite meditative, just going for a walk. And that's why in our tradition we have walking meditation too, just being more aware of walking. And interesting, I read this article once in a newspaper, and this was a lady, not a Buddhist, but just somebody she was doing charity work. And there was lots of challenges and problems she had to solve. And it got to the point where it was taking her over, she'd carry it home, go home with it going on, and, stop her from sleeping, and, it got to all these problems she had to deal with. And she realised she'd got to find some strategy. And what she did, the strategy she developed, before she left work, she used to chalk the problem on the sole of her shoe. Right? And as she walked home, she imagined the chalk being wiped off the bottom. She'd feel her feet touching the earth and the problem being wiped off. It really helped her to sort of let go of things. Yeah. That was just like walking meditation, just coming into the feet touching the earth. That's a strategy somebody came up with. Just something to get it out of the tendency to think about these problems, just to turn to some attention to something else. And that's it. If you can put something down and come back to it, sometimes that more fresh mind can see the solution better. When we're all agitated, sometimes we don't see the solution because agitation prevents more clear seeing and understanding of the situation. But when we come back to it with a clear mind, it can look quite different. And we can see ways of dealing with the challenges and problems. So I thought it was quite clever, that lady. Yes.
I have a little bit of a struggle when I try to meditate, and every time I try to contemplate my breath, when I try to contemplate my breath, I start automatically breathing unnaturally because I try to control it.
Yes.
And then I try to breathe naturally, but I don't know how to breathe naturally because every time I try to contemplate it,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and I'm not sure how I should adjust to it. Should I try to come up with a breathing technique and try to make it my natural breathing so that then I can contemplate it?
I mean, I think it takes a bit of time, but I think be able to watch the natural breath, however it is, not to make it long or short, but just knowing it the way the natural breath is. So if you can just contemplate like that, just observe the natural breath, don't try to do anything with it. And maybe we do at first, but try to be aware of that tendency to do something with it. And as we become more aware of the tendency to try and do something with it, then maybe we can let go of that tendency to control it or do something with it, and then we experience the natural breath more. And when we experience the natural breath more, that's the mind will become more calm from that. It's more natural. Where you're trying to force it, it doesn't lead to the same calmness and well-being in meditation. It is interesting how we can't just observe something as it is. As soon as we give attention, we've got to do something with it. So it's good to know, try to be aware of that tendency. But it's something we can't let go of. So we can just purely observe the breath as it is.
I'm wondering if that is even possible as long as there's an ego to observe without control.
Yes, yes. Maybe can be more of a gradual thing, but we can lessen it anyway, definitely lessen it. But I just, from my experience, the well-being that came from breathing meditation is more when I stopped doing it. It was letting it do itself more. And also just natural, more healing from the breath as well through that. Somehow the body has its own way of creating balance, energy balances and things like that. But the breath changes, the experience of the breath does change depending on our mood. And the physical condition of the body, the mood of the mind. So sometimes the breath can give us some insight into the mind by observing the changes in the breath with the different mind states. I used to work as an engineer. And for the first few years of my meditative life, I was working. And you'd be working, the computers and things, and you get problems with the computer, and you get a bit frustrated. And I began to notice what really highlighted the fact I was getting frustrated. I began to notice the breath changed, and that was good. Then, I was just going. Then maybe just take a few deep breaths, just to count. But the breath, that would really help me to notice I was getting frustrated with the work on the computer by the change in the breath.
I think there's a
Yes, yeah. But at first it can feel like you're doing it, but when the calm comes more, then it seems to more do itself through the calmness. And through the calmness, the sense of doing it lessens. When the mind's not calm, there's a more sense of doing it, but as things calm down, then there's a sense more of just the breath. You're just observing the breath as it is. Yeah. Well, maybe I should leave you to your meditations now. It's about 1 hour streaming.